Hello everyone and welcome back to Dearsley. In this video I'm going to look at my passenger coaches. On my goods wagons I use the Spratt and Winkle couplings. I don't want to use them on my coaches, but I want a way of connecting them that overcomes the gaps that can occur. So in essence I'm looking at close coupling for my coaches. One of the problems is that each manufacturer has a different idea of what a coupling should be. I know now there is a standard with the NEM pockets, but prior to that, with the tension locks, there was a big variation on sizes, etc. with them between manufacturers, but also a manufacturer could change their mind and produce another set of coaches with a slightly different coupling. When I first started my railway, I started buying passenger coaches, and I didn't pay too much regard to the manufacturer because in my naivety I felt that I would be able to sort out the couplings and standardise them myself. But I was wrong. I found this tiresome and difficult. Mainly I think because the couplings themselves are not attached to the coach bodies, but they're attached to the bogie. I soon began to realise that I wasn't going to be able to mix together coaches that have different types of tension lock coupling. So I've divided up my trains into coaches from the same manufacturer with the same design of coupling. I'm sticking with the tension lock couplings, and I'll explain how I've overcome some of the issues of close coupling with them. But first of all, let me show you the trains I'm going to run on my railway. This first one is the longest train I'm going to run because it's 5 coaches long, and 5 coaches and a locomotive is the longest I can get along platform 1. These coaches are all Hornby Railroad, and they're all fitted with NEM sockets. So this will be my longest train. It will run the express service from Grantham through to London, and it will remain together as a permanent rake. My second permanent rake are also Hornby coaches with NEM sockets. They will run the commuter service between King's Lynn and Norwich. I can make up a couple of very small rakes of 2 coaches, ideal for in and out of platform 2 on the shorter run between King's Lynn and Cromer. When my 2-car DMU unit is finished, it will operate this route. I can also make up a rake of 3 coach trains, again for short distances, perhaps where I need an extra coach. So I've got a bit of capacity in my coaching stock. I've also got several of these old Hornby LNER coaches. They look a bit dire at the moment, but I have plans for them, and I've got 6 that hopefully will make a nice heritage train. So that's my coaching stock, and that's my permanent rakes. So the next thing to show you is the couplings themselves, and we'll start with the good old tension locks. So here we are. I've set up the Dearsley test track with a Pico ramp decoupler here for the tension lock couplings, and a magnet is glued into here for magnetic uncoupling. But first I'm going to show you this photo I took earlier in the year when I started to modify my DMU. You can see this old Lima DMU has large tension lock couplings, and the distance between the 2 cars is for me unacceptable. But this is a separate build, and I will treat the couplings between these 2 units in a slightly different way. So, back to the coaches. These first coaches are the old Dapol suburban coaches, fitted with quite large tension locks, and in my view this gap is too big. That's an unacceptable gap. I know there's no connecting walkway between the two coaches, but this is too large. For me this is unacceptable, but they do uncouple on the Pico uncoupler without any problem. The second coaches are the Hornby BR Class 1s, and the gap is still quite wide. This time there are connectors between the two coaches, but the gap between the connectors is also too wide. However, of course, they do uncouple, so there's no problem there on the Pico uncoupler. The third coaches are these much older LNER teak coaches, but when I show you the distance between the standard tension locks on these, the gap is much closer. This is with no modification, so the gap here is, in my view, an acceptable gap, and I'd be happy to run these. In fact, I'm going to run these without any modifications at all. I just intend to put a better finish on these coaches when I get round to it. Again, absolutely no problem with uncoupling. Another set of coaches that work well without modification are these Bachmann Thompson's coaches, and you can see too that the gap is perfectly okay. Again, most acceptable, and as you can see, they uncouple perfectly well on the Pico uncoupler. And finally, the Hornby Railroad coaches that I intend to keep as standard on my railway. I shall buy more of these if I need more coaches. These come fitted with the modern NEM or NEM sockets. In them at the moment are the small tension lock couplings that come with them. They produce quite an acceptable distance between the coaches. More acceptable than the earlier large tension locks do. But this can be improved on, and I will show you this later. Obviously, no problem in uncoupling. There is one quite inexpensive and simple way of improving the gap between these coaches that couple closely together, and that's to join the connecting parts that bridge that small gap. I think this greatly improves the look. I will show you how I fit these later. They're very simple, and in case you're wondering, they're not attached to both coaches, so if you need to break a rake down, then they do uncouple. So I've slimmed down my coaching stock. These old Hornby coaches with the old large tension locks. I have tried to modify some with little success, so I'm going to confine these to the spares box. But when you look at the size of the old tension lock compared with the newer ones that are supplied in the NEM sockets, you can begin to understand why they run so much closer together. However, there is an even closer coupling that you can put in the NEM sockets, which gets the coaches closer than even this. This is one of the more recent Hornby BR coaches fitted with the NEM socket, and you can see, I think, the tension lock coupling, the small tension lock coupling, fits inside that socket. If I just put my finger on that to hold it, I can just unplug that, and then the socket is free to take alternatives. And one of the alternative I use is actually a Hornby, it's made by Hornby, and it is a close coupling assembly, and they look like that. Now that fits in the socket, and of course on the another coach they will fit together like that, with really a very much reduced gap between the corridors. To uncouple them, you just simply lift one and separate. They couple up nicely together when they're on the track. There's no way of uncoupling them on the track with a Pico or any other device. They are really for permanently made up rakes, which is fine. So here are the coupling setups for a rake of 4 coaches. At the end of the train, 4-coach train, where the coupling to the locomotive is a miniature tension lock coupling. On the other end of this coach is a close coupling. The 2 middle coaches have close couplings each end, and the coach at the other end of the train is close coupled to the middle coaches and then has a small tension lock on the end that's not coupled. It's so that the locomotives can couple onto each end. And what I'll do with some paint is just colour code each of these so that when I store them away I know which rake they belong to. Here are the corridor connections that fit between each of the coaches and close up that gap. They are quite simple affairs. They're sort of a concertina or bellows arrangement here, and they come with sticky pads that you stick on the coach and then you stick this onto the pad. However, I found the pads are too thin, and they recess too much in some of the coaches. So what I've opted to do is to glue them on with some PVA glue. I simply apply some of this glue just around there. This PVA glue dries clear, so it should be okay. And just going to spread that evenly. Around, and then I take one of the connectors, making sure that I connect it only to the end that has the close coupling connector, and I simply just push that in place. And line it up. I'm trying not to get any of the glue on the bellows themselves, and I like to make sure that looks reasonably lined up and square on there. Give it a little bit of a press, and that I think could be close coupled for drying, because the other coach will hold it in place. Of course, you don't need to have both sides glued on, and that eliminates any unsightly gaps between your passenger coaches. And here is a shot from the test track. You can see when I run it over the ramp uncoupler, if I can get, oops. You can see the close couplers connected to each other, and I have them set on the Pico decoupling ramp, and that's indicated by a white spot on the sleeper. That's where the centre of it is. So when you run a train over it with the connections, they stay connected. But you can uncouple them or decouple them on the ramp in exactly the same way as tension locks. I have removed the little hook that does the uncoupling. They're quite small. I hope you can, yeah, you can see them now. Put it against the coach. Okay, they come off quite easily. There's one on each, of course, but with them removed, your rakes will remain perfectly sound backwards and forwards over the uncoupling ramps. I said earlier that they are only suitable for permanent, for rakes permanently coupled. I was wrong actually. I've just realised that you can decouple them if you leave these little hooks fitted. I am pleased with this result, both from the point of view of cost, it's an inexpensive solution, and of time. It's a quick solution as well, so it doesn't take too long to set up a rake of coaches like this. If you've watched any of my goods operations videos, you will know that I don't have any hooks fixed to the locomotives. The connectors for my goods wagons that use the Spratt and Winkle couplings are connected by a hook that hooks onto this bar that's on the front of my shunter locomotive here. So all I need to add on to my goods locos is just a bar across the buffers at both ends. Of course, the tension lock couplings won't fit on this bar. My setup for connecting the coaches to the passenger locos is not to have the hook on the coupling on the locomotive. That's in keeping with my goods trains. As I say, I haven't got a hook on there either. But to leave the hook on the tension lock coupling on the end of the coach, so that when the coaches hook up, it's just one hook holds in position. I want to make provision for mixed traffic locos, so on this class 4F I have a tension lock coupling without a hook fitted in the NEM socket, and I have a bar across the buffers for the goods wagons. So you can see the a passenger coach connects on the tension lock, and goods wagons can connect to the Spratt and Winkle coupling. So this part is finished. The passenger locos are now set for connecting to the front or the rear of passenger trains for departures or arrivals to Dearsley. So what I want to show you now is the provision I've made on the track in order to operate the passenger locomotives. Welcome to the darkest corner of my fiddle yard. This is the first time I've actually tried videoing in here, and it's a bit of a squeeze getting a light on the subject. This shot shows my 3 longest sidings. I intend to use these for passenger stock. Each one is fitted with a Pico uncoupler. This is the head shunt at the end of my platform. You can see I have a Pico uncoupling ramp here. Now I need to uncouple much closer to the camera point. In other words, I need to uncouple this side of the point. You might just be able to see there's a magnet hidden under the ballasting here, and I use little markers, just cocktail sticks with a white top, just to indicate the position of the magnet. I find these little marker posts don't look out of place, and they really are discreet. The only problem is the tension lock couplings don't uncouple over magnets. but there is a simple way of modifying them so that they do just that. All you need to make this work is, of course, the coupling itself, and the only bit you need is the hook part of it, which is easily removable. In addition to that, you need an ordinary household stapler, and you need to remove the staples, and then you need one staple per coupling. I have hooks at both ends of my passenger trains, but I only need to decouple them at one end as they arrive into the platform. Now, the first thing to check is that the that the hook is not magnetic. It's not made of a ferrous metal, so you just need some magnets, and you see that's not magnetic at all. I don't know what it is. It is metal, I think, so it's probably aluminium or something like that. The staple, however, is magnetic. This is the modified staple, and the one above it is out of the machine. Now I can demonstrate how this works on my test track. The white marked sleeper on the right marks the position of the magnet. So when the train pulls forward over the magnet and then shunts back, it unhooks and the train can move forward. All I need now to finish is to put some black paint on the staple, and then I can show you how this works in practice.
The train standing at platform 2 is a commuter service to Cromer, calling at Sheringham.